George, this wide receiver room was a little different than it did in the spring. Just how has this room changed for you guys?
I mean, we've added a lot of competitive depth, so which has been really fun. The guys are all working hard. You know, we got some guys, and we were lucky enough to evaluate some guys in that period this summer. So bringing them back has been fun, and like I said, it's just raised the competition level of everybody else around them.
What's bringing Casey back mean for you guys?
It's good. You know, I don't know Casey outside of just the communication, but it's another big receiver that's competitive. You know, I mean, and I think the more competitive guys you get into a room, the higher the intensity goes, and in practice. So we're really, that's what we're trying to do. But it just adds another big body receiver for us.
What did you like out of Jafar to bring him in to the group?
Jafar, you know, he's very mature. You know, he's been at a program that's had success, so he can bring it here. You know, he prepares really well. So he's done a good job coming in, being a leader, and just showing some of the guys, the younger guys, how to take notes. And he works extremely hard, so it's been a pleasure to work with him.
When was the first practice you saw Isaiah Williams at wide receiver, and what did you think when you saw him?
I think it was like the practice after the spring game, and then you just see his natural ability. Like you see it when he scrambles and he takes off, but then it's at the quarterback spot. But then when you see him stop and start doing the receiver drills, I mean, he has some really good skill sets to work with.
Yeah, what can he bring to you guys in that slot?
I mean, he's a dynamic player. We know he's fast. We know he's shifty. I think he set the quarterback rushing record versus Rutgers, so you know he can do things with the ball in his hand. So now it's just a matter of getting him comfortable and helping him learn the nuances of playing wide receiver. But once again, we got a group of guys that work really hard, and he comes in every day ready to learn, and you can coach him really hard, so that's been fun.
What's that education as a wide receiver for him? Because obviously he knows a little bit about the passing game, but like, what's that look like for you guys?
I think it's just the details of wide receiver. Like he's played quarterback his whole life, so he understands like where people are supposed to be at. But now it's just how am I supposed to get there? So that's been something that he's learned. Like, okay, I know what route I have, but how do I run that route off of what leverage? We did the same thing at another school when we had Jacoby Myers. It's just understanding them and getting them to understand just the fine details of being a route runner.
What are some of those things you have to really focus on?
Just about attacking leverage and setting people up, and just like the little nuances of how to create space at the top of the route. And I told him, like, they're going to hit you. Like, you don't have 5 guys protecting you, so him just getting used to getting hit and stuff like that.
He was rattling off like a bunch of NFL wide receivers he watches. Is that something you encourage him to do, or is that just something he does?
A little bit of both. You know, I like to study tape, but he's a football guy. He's a football junkie, so he was studying tape, so we were kind of feeding off each other of, hey, what should I study? Who should I look for? And then we sat down and just said, hey, this is the things that you're looking for to get better at. Don't just watch as a fan, kind of watch as a guy that's trying to study someone and incorporate that into their game.
Have you had to like slow his, I don't want to say learning curve for you of him in teaching him, or is he just soaking all of that up and performing it? Does that make sense in terms of like, he's got all this talent and that's
right.
Great, but like, do you find yourself pushing him?
No, we're trying to push. We're trying to push everybody. You know, training camp, we everybody has the same amount of days to get ready for the first game. So we're trying to accelerate everybody's learning, and we're trying to throw everything at them and help them, you know, put stress on their minds and to learn. And he's, you know, like I said, he understands the offense because he's been playing it at a different spot. Now it's just a matter of getting out there and getting those muscle memory reps so he can really understand how to run routes. But that's for everybody at every position. We're trying to throw as much as we can at them and try to make those guys stress so they can continue to grow.
How much does a guy like Donnie help a guy like him?
Donnie's awesome. You know, Donnie's like a coach on the field. You know, he's pushing himself, but Donnie has a unique understanding of how to play the outside, and he started in as a slot. So he has the ability to play all the positions. So he's a guy that he can go to quietly and say, hey, how did you run that route, or what did you do, or what are your thought process there? So Donnie's been a great value, and Donnie's been a value to me. Just like, hey, am I going too hard? Am I talking too fast? Am I being too tough? So you know, he's a very mature guy that everybody in the room, you know, uses as a sounding board.
Isaiah said you called him some kind of noodle. Is that what you call him?
Wet noodle. You know, he's just flatline. I like, give me a little energy. So he says he's a silent assassin, so I'm going to start calling him assassin from now on.
What's Brian Hightower? We saw some flashes out of him. You've had almost 8 months, I think, with him. What do you think of?
He's growing. He's doing a good job. Like, Brian's being more physical. I think sometimes big guys want to play small, so just him buying into being really physical, and he's made a lot of plays. So every day, like, he's just trying to come out and get better, and that's what he's done over the last 3 practices. He's really put the days together where he's making plays, making competitive catches, which has been really impressive to see.
Pat Bryant is a guy that was here before you got here. I know he's young, he's got time to grow, but like, what have you seen from him so far?
He's good. He's very mature. I think that's the one thing that stood out to me is when you talk to him, he has a seriousness about him. He understands that football is important, and he understands what it takes to be successful here. And he's another guy this is day 3, but he's pushed himself every day to get better at something, and you can see him growing on tape. So he's been a pleasure to see.
George, not talking about any specific recruits, but in the class of 2022, talking with coaches and athletes who have committed, your name just keeps kind of popping up on the recruiting trail. How have you felt on the recruiting trail and about the efforts of this staff as a whole so far?
I mean, we have a staff of great recruiters, so it makes it easy, and it's not one person. I think when we recruit, whether we bring them on campus or we're calling, it's a group effort. So I think the kids feel everybody loving them up, and I think that's why the tide is changing our way. But Coach B's put together a great staff of guys. I'm just trying to do my part, identify some guys, and the biggest thing in recruiting is to develop relationships. And when you got Aaron Henry, you got Coach Boo, it's easy to develop relationships because everybody's in that relationship to try to get the kid to fall in love with Illinois.
If I can ask you about NIL, back when you were a player, how do you feel like you would have approached that
I would have been broke still. Simeon Rice, Kevin Hardy, I still would have been broke. My friends would have been making some money, but I think NIL is great. It gives everybody an opportunity to make some money and to get their brand out there. But it's still going to come down to what guys do on the field. The better you do on the field, the probably better you're going to do off the field. So I would have been, hanging out with Simeon a little bit more and stuff like that.
So how do you approach that topic then as a coach of these young men who are trying to benefit off their name, image, and likeness?
I think you encourage it, and you have honest conversations and say, the more you do on the field, the more you're probably going to get off the field. So let's concentrate on being great football players, and then the byproduct will be the stuff that you can make off your name. But sorry.
So one more, if I could. I talked to Pete Rowley recently. He told me he's living in your basement. What have been your initial impressions of him?
Me and Pete have a history back at our other school. So Pete's awesome. He does everything you want him to do anytime you want it to do it. So it's always good, and it's like all of us. It's a family in terms of if there's slack at one end, we go pick it up, and we all trying to work together to get one thing done.
You got to evaluate the group for the first time in the spring. Coming out of that, what did you think you needed to do with this?
Add players. Just add competition. And I think that's when you come into a situation as a new coach, you're trying to evaluate the room. And then I think what we needed was something to shock the system and add competition and add guys who can create competitive depth. And I think that's what we did. And that's what Coach B charged us all to do in recruiting and this period is get guys who can compete either to play or to make the room better. And I think that's what we did with some of the guys we brought in.
Have you seen that already?
Yeah. You walk in and Casey comes in and makes a catch. It's like, all right, I got to make a catch. Miles Scott comes in, he makes a catch. Okay, Pat Bryant. So it's just like if we're having friendly competition, if I make a play, you're going to want to make a play. And if I don't make the play and someone else is going to make the play, that's going to shorten your margin for error, which is going to make everybody more intense. So it's been fun.
I know he's been a little banged up with KSB, so what do you think he eventually can bring to your team?
It's hard. I love his personality. I love it. He's a football guy. We got to get him healthy, but I think once he gets healthy and we get him acclimated, I think he's going to be fun to watch. I don't necessarily know what, but I know he loves football. He loves Illinois. He tries to do the right thing a lot. So, he's been working to get right, and as soon as he gets done, I'm going to try to get him out there and see what he can do.